Hello, I am Ron Baker. Welcome to Empowered at Last. This week I want to talk to you about a pretty inspiring topic that I think is so important that we become aware of and that we encourage in one another. And that is the power of standing together, the power of coming together with other people so that we aren't so isolated in our perspectives, isolated in our support, but that we come together and teach each other and inspire each other by our choices, that we are willing. When one person shows up willing to stand for something that matters to them and encourages others, this has a way of becoming a movement. We live in a world where many choices are going to extremes. Many choices are out of balance. And we don't have tons of examples on a big scale, on a governmental scale, of coming together, encouraging people to come together. So often everything is opposition and divisive. So often people are afraid that their preferences, their needs won't be heard, can't be heard. Well, if we start to come together to share what's important to us, and we balance it with a willingness to listen to other perspectives, this needs to be a profound deepening and enhancement in our world. How in the world are we going to interrupt the extremes and the opposition that we see everywhere? Certainly we see it in the United States. Certainly we see it in Europe. I imagine we see it all over the world. I've done tons of traveling, probably 2/3 of the world, and I have witnessed this everywhere. But it's in a particularly heightened time now. So coming together and standing together for things that matter to us is a profound way to heal, to be more powerful, and to know that you're not alone. Everybody has fear, shame, and judgment that they negotiate. Just the fear of standing up, the fear of speaking up. This is a problem. This is a real crisis. Why in the world are we afraid to stand up and speak up? Because we have not been in a world that has been encouraging tons of nurturing, holding a safe space for each person to have their valid feelings and perspectives. Until more and more people learn these skills and make these choices, our extremes are going to continue to push the pendulum. Life has a way of getting our attention to bring us back toward center, but that usually involves crisis. Notice how so many times people wait for crisis. Thank goodness we all have hearts and we all can recognize how we would feel if the crisis were happening in our own backyard. But just look at how people tend to come together only after crisis, or to come together only to oppose someone else. When are we going to learn to come together in order to share and inspire and listen and negotiate and find solutions that allow for every person to be valued? Now, I realize that what I just suggested, if I were intending that on a world level, is naive. How are we going to do it? starting in our homes and starting in our communities. If we will start to come together in our communities, standing for the things that matter to us, doing it in a way to have our voice be heard, creating spaces for other people to gather who would like to celebrate, who would like to stand up for things, who would like to have a voice but aren't yet ready. But when others create a place for them to come and gather, and they see how safe it is, how enhancing it is, then we will inspire more and more people to come together, to speak up, to stand up in ways that are seeking solutions. Solutions, not opposition. It's so easy to come together and go, they're wrong and they're bad and this sucks and that's terrible. But if instead we come together and say, this is what matters to us, and this is what we are going to choose, and this is what we're going to support in our community, and this is a safe place for everyone to come and be heard. These are the solutions that we can come to together. Then we will become the leaders, the real leaders on the planet that are needed. Not waiting for our big governments that have gotten so corrupt, so wrapped up in manipulations of the almighty dollar, so fearfully motivated, so oppositional. It's so discouraging. So rather than waiting for our huge government to change, let's create models of community support that are healthy, that are nurturing, that are fair, that consider everyone. And as we practice, we'll get better and better and better at doing just that. Now, the first example that I want to bring up of a community coming together is a huge community called New York City. Now, I'm going to give two examples. One is when 9/11 took place. Yes, that was a crisis rather than people just coming together. I'm going to start there because even in crisis, it can be a stunning thing that inspires people to respond. If you had been in New York City like I was, in those first days, even amidst a bigger shock than any of us had ever gone through, for the most part, unless you happen to be a veteran, etc. In the midst of all that, so many thousands of people came out to find out how they could help. So many people flooded the Red Cross to give blood, the volunteer stations that began to spring up. There were so many people who showed up. It lasted for weeks and weeks. People talking to one another on the subway cars. People sharing a common experience is a phenomenal way to inspire safe conversation. That happened, and New York City came together in a big way. Not long after 9/11, New York City had a blackout. That is quite shocking in a city like New York, where there's nothing but shops and stoplights and subways and a blackout. I was so moved by how many people came out and offered the food to the people who needed to eat. The food without a refrigerator was likely going to go bad, and so many people turned it into a way to help, a way to support. It was baffling to watch that take place on the streets rather than looting, rather than, oh, it's a time to take advantage of the situation. because we had just been through 9/11 and we were already aware of the sensitivities of each other more fully, we don't have to wait for crisis to live and inspire and encourage more of this coming together, creating spaces where people who want to be heard on particular issues or come together and just practice solution focuses, to practice learning how to put the needs of the community out and how to work through the tendency toward opposition, which is nothing more than fear. We need these things to spring up. So that's the first example. The second example that I'd like to give is one that has been happening in Woodstock. I happen to live in Woodstock half the time. The community here has come together twice in the last month in such beautiful, clear ways. The first was when there was a march standing up for the children who were being separated from their families at the border. Marches all over the country are springing up for things like this. Community, grassroots movements. These are going to likely become the powerful new seeds of change from people just like you and me who come together and stand for things that matter to us. What happened at this march? I had a relative ask me, what good do you think it did? The good that I think it did, now that I've had some time to think about it, is people had a safe place to come together, to stand together, and feel more powerful by far together. This showed others who may not have been aware or wanted to become a part of this march how many people feel strongly about issues like this, championing the children. And so tons and tons of people, hundreds of people, came out to march in this tiny little community of Woodstock. What else did it do? It gave a chance for people to inspire each other. Not only was there a march, but there was a gathering place. And there was a place to celebrate what we stand for and what matters to us. And there was a place for people who had personal experiences to speak. An example was a girl who happened to come through the airport in Texas and watched some of these children who were being separated, being taken. She got to witness the experience of how these children seemed to feel. She got to witness how other people didn't want to see it and moved away, and how other people gathered around wanting to support and say, this is not okay with us. All of these are examples of inspiring each other in Woodstock. Another person got up and shared how he had come to the United States as an immigrant, just like Donald Trump's parents had done a generation ago, had come here as immigrants based on trying to improve the quality of their lives, and how they got separated briefly and how traumatizing that has been. Another Native American spoke from the perspective of the impact of cultures being displaced rather than people coming together. This is entirely possible. Why do I know it? I have a community of people, of thousands of people who've been doing this work with me over the last 20 some years. A community that includes every religion, every race, every sexual orientation, every level of consciousness. we come together and work together and communicate together and inspire each other through our learning curve. It's not idealism. It's willingness to apply some principles of mutual value to come together. So Woodstock had this first event, and now there's a second event, a more localized one, where a particular company has come in to build a series of cabins that they went to the board, told the city council that this was their intention, to build a residential only enhancement. They were approved. Well, it seems they had other agendas and weren't quite so honest. And they went into this area, which is just literally nestled in a residential neighborhood. And instead of residential only, they built a cafe, a bar, and an area for outside music. And the community came together, listening, responding, trying to say, this is not the agreement we made. This will impact our lives in profound ways. And because of continuing to show up, it is making a real impact, and more people are coming together to say, we've supported this shift, which shakes up our comfort zone, but we need to have mutual value and we need to have limits, and you have broken the contract. You have violated our agreement and our trust. It is so important. This has not yet panned out to know what the end results are going to be, but people coming together are so much more powerful. And if you do it in a way that's clear and fair and willing to listen, but standing in the principles and values of the mutual agreements, you set yourself up really well. So these are all examples of grassroots movements having an impact as we learn to come together to stand in the truth of what matters to us and have a willingness to listen so that we can create solutions, compromises, negotiations, and come to an interrupt of so many extremes, bringing ourselves back to balance. If we don't, crisis will indeed come from the ridiculous extremes that we have been capable in our histories of pushing things toward. It has never worked, it has never helped, and it has not left us feeling safer. When will we wake up? When you wake up and when I wake up, we will inspire more people to wake up. When we stand for solutions and healthier approaches, we will wake up. That is the message of this week. That is what I hope you will seed in your home and in your community in a much bigger way. We will be so glad that we have each other if this is how we approach the situation. I wish you all the best. Please write in, comment, like the video, share the video or the audio recording if you're listening on iTunes. Please pass the word. I so want these hints and clues for improving the quality of our lives to reach more and more people. I need your help. What a beautiful segue into coming together. I show up and offer this, which I hope you find of great value, and I need you to come together with me, helping to spread the word. I also hope that you will go to ronbaker.net and join my mailing list. Basically, what you will receive is a weekly newsletter that announces the podcast of the week and occasional special events or workshops, that kind of thing. It's a real inspiration every Sunday in your inbox. So without further ado, I will close for now and say, have a great week. Choose well, live fully, and by all means be good to you.